guys. Hi Anuj. Hi Shreya. Welcome to Detour with Design. This is a very special episode. Everybody should know for the first time we'll be chatting with Anuj, Kale and Shreya of Leewardists, and we are truly excited. Welcome guys. Hi, how are you?
Great, great. I mean, we are a bit tired because we've been traveling for the past month. It's been a month we've been traveling, and but I think we are almost close to base. We are not in our base. Our studio is in Nashik, but we are right now in New Bombay. But yeah, I mean,
Almost there.
almost there.
Into a lot more new types of content that we'll be getting to see on your social media pages. Pretty much that's what it's about.
Maybe not on social media, because this is more towards print media and towards more documentation on site, and then making stories that are very real. Social media is very different.
But I think even when we travel for print,
Yeah,
there are always
stories that come on social
yeah,
media.
it's a byproduct. Like even if you write for print, the stories which come, there are always these smaller byproduct stories which definitely go on the social media. So it's a win-win. Like but yeah, I think what Shreya mentioned, these are much more focused and much more intense in terms of uh, the documentation and the surveys and the stories of real people which are trying to convey through a graphic novel or a series of graphic novels.
Wow, so I sense like a big revelation is going to happen in this interview. But before we go on to that, let's rewind a little bit. We did a little bit of our research, but we really couldn't find anywhere where you have come across and mentioned that, what was that Eureka moment for you? Like where you jumped up in front of the screen or something. I don't know where this whole concept came together of Leewardists. This is, of course, a specific question to Anuj. And Shreya, feel free to jump in if you know any details that we would love to hear. So, yeah, what was that moment that I really want to know where this whole concept came together and, it was like, wow, now this is what I'm going to do and this is what I'm going to do.
So yeah, I mean it's I think something which relates to our childhood where I definitely had an interest in reading comics. I know it's a very cliched story, but that's how it is. I mean, you read comics from your childhood, and then you of course enter architecture because my father is an architect. I had a specific interest. A forced interest in architecture, which eventually led to, of course, a lot of illustrations and graphics in college. I was fascinated by it, but then eventually, I think the combination of the two, like architecture and comics coming together, and I think 2 years down the line, when Shreya also joined, I think we both had similar interest in terms of how to combine, basically making things simpler for people to understand. That's where I think I also, when I read comics in my childhood, is something which I've learned more from rather than reading other books. Again, it's very cliched. Comics is a better way to communicate, etc. But it is. It is. That's what
Yeah.
I think. I also
Yeah.
resonated.
Yeah, and I think the profession itself is so serious. Like everybody is so serious. We are supposed to talk in a language that only we understand. And there's nothing that really goes out of the fraternity. There's no method of communication that sort of reaches out to, let's say, people like my parents who are not architects, or who don't know what is it that an architect does, or an urban designer does, or an urban planner does. So yeah, it's sort of like a tool which we have picked up, but also as an added interest of reading comics, reading narratives, storytelling, and trying to understand how to go beyond the usual representation of architecture in what we see in magazines and uh, architecture forums.
But again, this obviously you have to admit to the fact that architecture and comics is not something that comes to somebody like just like that. Like nobody can really. If at the first go, even I'm sure when you guys started off, there was it took some time for people to get used to these this sort of a thing coming out, right? So obviously must not be the first thing that came, which I do understand for the percolation to common people is what you said that you began. But why that could have been there are lots of other ways of probably percolating to people. Why did you think that comics would be the apt way of illustrating or representing these issues or whatever your social agenda was?
I think it was like initially, I mean, when I started, it was just a, like a crazy thought to just make comics about architecture because, uh, like I said, interest in comics and my field, like these are two things. Like I always wanted to make comics, but I did not know whether I can make comics on architecture. But I think eventually, when you start making comics about other stuff, like maybe politics or anything like environment or anything, you feel that it's maybe not what I am as a person. So even like it's a slow process to eventually think and then say that, oh, why can't I make comics on like my field? It's as simple. I mean, it's simple, but eventually it takes a lot of time because initially you feel that, see, that is how the world works. It's about like if it is cartoons or comics or like RK Lakshman. If you look at RK Lakshman or if you look at Tinkle, it's usually these stories which have been like you've been seeing them from your childhood and you think that is how it is supposed to be. I mean, of course, initially when I started in 2016, I started to make comics on urban design because I am an urban designer also by profession. So I thought I'll make comics on like water systems or like garbage management, traffic, like all these things which are taught to us in the school.
Okay.
But then eventually it did not. Of course, it was too early maybe because right now we are doing that. But in 2016, it was a big flop, a big fail.
I mean, I wouldn't say so because for that time I'll speak as an audience because at that time I was an audience and I was in college. So it was something very different for somebody like me to see. It was a different method to talk about the same things that we study in, let's say, in architecture colleges or urban design. For example, there was this comic on Kinderdijk,
Mhm.
which are the mills in windmills in the Netherlands, and I read that comic as a student at that time, and I understood that it's not just a windmill; it's actually an entire system, that helps the city with its water management. So I mean, you know, the use of storytelling along with the illustrations, along with use of certain protagonists, it really helps you relate, and it really helps you understand in ways that maybe you won't understand through an article or through a documentary or something like that. So I think, I mean, I don't think it was a flop at that time. I think it was definitely different, and it was, I think, for the entire architecture fraternity, it was something very different to see, because all we see are like articles and blogs and all of that. So it was definitely something very different for the eye. Yeah.
Okay, but this on a very personal note. So, Anuj, you like completed your education and you started this. You did not like you have you worked as an architect?
I worked as an urban designer slash architect for a year,
Okay,
14, 15. That was
okay,
it. And I immediately got, I mean, I would not say that I faced all those traumas which people, like the architects are facing right now, because I think I had a very good office and I think I was just bored with the routine and the relaxed environment. And I mean, it could have been the other way also. Whichever way, I would have come here, because if it is too boring, you don't want to like pursue it, and if it is too stressful, again, it's like you would want to leave it. So I think it was for me too mundane and quite a like monotonous routine, which I thought. And of course that also helped me to practice, because I had a very relaxed atmosphere in the office for a year. it helped me also, like test out my skills and practice some more. So that was, I think, a year only. That's it. I mean, I have not worked since then.
Right. So, as again, as a personal, like a content creator, whatever you like to put the terms that you would like to give to these things.
Yeah, I mean,
Exactly.
anything is
So,
fine.
yeah, right. You cannot really box it up. So,
Yeah, yeah.
biggest challenge I think is to bring up new content. Of course, new channels is one of the challenges, and one of the biggest thing is to bring up something new every day or every week or every month. So, how do you guys lock up a theme or a particular concept for a particular series of a comic or a particular illustration, even if it is?
Initially, I think, I mean, see, there are phases of Leewardists. I mean, like this is the seventh year.
Wow.
So there have always been phases, and the initial phase, like a very small phase, which I talked about, was the urban design phase, which went for a year. Then I think 2 years of, I think, memes.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, because
I
you
think
have
earlier there were like longer comics that were on the website.
website, but
Yeah.
that did not work. But then, I mean, they worked. You can, I don't know, I've never evaluated that much. But then I think there was a phase of short content like memes slash comics, which I think helped to reach out to more people. And I mean, even though a lot of people liked it and a lot of people hated it, it still was very important because you have to get to an audience. So I would not say that those were not important, but it actually helped us to get a lot of people to get visibility. And that's how the social media works. You cannot, like, I mean, sometimes you have to give in. Initially you have to give in. So but then later, when it gained certain followers, so when like Shreya also came in, we thought of writing longer stories, which is again a challenge in social media because like
The
attention span is
yeah.
very less. So that was 2018 to 20
2020.
before the pandemic. I mean, I would not say longer. I mean, these are longer stories, but not critical. Yes, because I think after the pandemic, 20 to 22, we became much more critical in making the students aware, the young architects aware of what is happening. Because sometimes the architecture world is too glorified and too, it's so nice. It seems so nice when you look at it as in on the website. So nobody is going to talk about the harsh truths which the students are facing, which the interns are facing, which the young architects are facing, or whatever is happening in the practice. Like somebody who's even an established practice architect, or even a upcoming architect, whatever they're facing. So everywhere you go, there is all this. Like if you go to any big architectural page, they will talk about all these projects which are happening around the world, and everything is positive. I mean, that's how it is. I mean, recently, I think some of the portals have been starting to talk about some critical, harsh realities or truths. That I think I mean, we already have been talking about it from day one, but we started to be more critical in behaving like a catalyst. So what happens is, if it is a meme, I mean, of course, it will create an impact, but then people would not want to go into the depth of it. So they will just look at it on the surface, and then okay, this happens with us, etc. And then from 2020, I think the lockdown, we wrote the comic called as "We Don't Need an Architect After." No, sorry, do we need an architect after COVID-19? So it was like a, a satire, but at the same time a question towards the fraternity, that are we doing something, like what are we doing exactly? Like most of the architects are graduating, and the college is an ideal life, but once they graduate, they are just completely forget all the ethos and the learnings, and then they just, because the industry is so harsh, that they will go for jobs which are paying them good, and the offices which are paying them good might not necessarily be doing something.
Great.
Yeah, so that's where I think the comic which we wrote for the COVID-19, during the COVID-19, which also gave us confidence to write critically even more.
Yeah,
We then
because you never know if social media is trying to if social media is open to responding to such comics. But also, to answer your question, I think uh, we are never really worried that, oh, we have to churn content like every day or every 2 days or every 3 days. To be very honest, we don't even, like, like how there are certain content creators who are like, they're very sort of,
Methodical,
And they schedule
yeah,
schedule.
they're very managing with their,
Yeah.
social media
Like
content, and
we
they
met people who say that I have scheduled post for the week. I'm like, how
yeah,
does that
we,
even
we
matter?
we
Because
don't think like that, because to be very honest, like, topics, there are many, there are like so many topics that probably we've not even touched, we've not even talked about, probably we don't have enough knowledge for it also. But I mean, what is important is how you tell that story. So let's say there is something, for example, there's something about education that we want to talk about. So we will take enough time to be a first, sort of be informed, be well informed about the issue, and then write a good story that can relate to architecture students, architects, professors all around the world, not just, India. So it I mean, we've never really thought that, there have been times where we've not put up comics for a month or so, because that is where we are brainstorming on something else, or we are trying to think that, oh, we want to talk about something else, we want to talk about different topics. And also, I mean, because our team members are also, we are all architects. There's one architect who's working from Chennai. He works at an office. So, there are a lot of topics that come from him that talks about the profession. There are architects who recently graduate. For example, Falguni, who's a research employee, and she always wanted to talk about that. Oh, we celebrate Lee Corbusier so much. So, she recently graduated, and she wanted to talk about this idea that, there are star architects who we really sort of romanticize and praise, and we've been told to talk about them. So, she worked on that comic, and it took her a month or so to sort of work on it, and we eventually published it, and it got a very good response and everything. So it's really about the idea. We feel that, it doesn't have to be that, we have to publish every day, but publish good comics that, make sense and that relate to people. Be that a meme. I mean, a meme necessarily does not have to be just a joke. It can also be a very, for example, the earlier memes that you made about
college life or
no the
yeah, I mean something about, I mean it can be a thought-provoking meme also. I don't consider only meme as just I mean it's not, I don't feel it's completely useless. It still has a good I think reach, and you can use it. I mean it's just that people don't think, people take everything as given. Like for social media, the given is that you have to be funny, or you have to be like, like punching down jokes to politics, because that is what works usually. So there's these stereotypes, or I would say given, that they will follow, or posting 4 times a week, posting at 9 a.m. works for us. All of these are just many generic articles or generic see, if you have to teach to 1,000 people, you have to generalize things, right? And that's how education works in a way. So if somebody is teaching about social media, they will talk in a general manner, that post 3-4 times a day, post at 9 a.m. because that something happens at that time, to talk about these issues. These are just generalized terms which works maybe initially, but eventually when you spend time with your social media, you have to analyze, you have to look at your audience, you have to, you have to get into data and check what works, what does not work, and you have to create content which is original. And that's how it goes beyond the page, right? That's what we want it to go beyond our circle. If there are 1,000 followers, we have to make sure it goes beyond our page. So it all depends on how, it's again a slow process. I mean, if you even talk about social media, I don't know who is saying that you go to social media, you'll get viral. No, it's a slow process. Even the first viral comic which we had took 2015 to 18, 3 years.
And it was a meme.
And it was a meme. Yeah, but then it's an evolution. It's a slow process which eventually leads to that viral post. I think viral is just, I mean, for us, it is reaching out to maximum people. So people
Or
should
like
know
reaching out beyond the architecture
fraternity.
fraternity.
That happens. I mean, and that has happened quite a few times where I think most of our comics have been published by like Hindustan Times, Times of India,
The
First
Wire.
Verse, The Wire, uh, because they have a certain relatability with a general audience. Although it is about urban design and architecture, but it still connects to a larger audience. So I think that is what we also eventually want. It's a very long way to go, but that is what we're working on. I mean, it should be accessible by everybody. Architecture and urban design should be understood
I
and
agree.
accessible by everyone. Yeah.
We have to open up as a community. We are very closed. Sometimes we can be really closed. Agreed.
Yeah, yeah, true. Yes.
So although you did kind of reveal it in the beginning, but I still want like I don't know, formal announcement. So the next big thing, like you said, for Leewardists is the book that you're coming up with, a series or something like that. So yeah, why don't you shed some light on it? And what can we expect, and what can the people expect, and how do you plan to go about it? Everything. Tell us everything. We're dying to hear.
Yeah, I think we can talk about City for All first because
Yeah.
I think we contacted Swati Janu from New Delhi. She is the founder of Social Design Collaborative. Shreya just casually messaged her because we followed her work and we thought, like this, let's message her. And I think they were having a conference about
No City for Women. I think that was their first conference and a series of workshops that they were doing with students where they were trying to understand if cities are predominantly made for men, and how much of it is for women, for the elderly, for the kids, for even the transgender community and the LGBTQI community. So I mean, yeah, it started as a very casual conversation about creating something that can help both social design collaborative and Leewardists. But eventually, as we got to know more about each other, the firm ideology and everything, that is when we thought that we'll collaborate with them for the art festival that they are still doing. They're in Delhi right now, called City for All with a question mark, which is a public art festival in it's uh,
6 cities.
yeah, it's been done in 6 cities. So Jaipur, Chandigarh, Ahmedabad, Pune, Bangalore, and now it's culminating in Delhi. So it's a public art festival that's designed by Social Design Collaborative and from France, for the Bonjour India Festival by Alliance Francaise. So yeah, that is where we have been traveling with them for 3 cities, 3 different cities, and we've sort of gone to different neighborhoods and understood via surveys that if cities are designed for everybody, it's that's the topic, which is City for All. So yeah, the book that is coming up is about these 3 cities that we went to, and trying to weave a story about people who we met, people from different economic backgrounds, people of different gender identities, people who identify with different sexualities, and trying to understand if Indian cities are made for everybody. So yeah, that's the book, and hopefully it is to sort of educate not only people outside the architecture fraternity, but also to sort of bring the dialogue in the education as well, architecture education as well, where, I mean, for example, there were a lot of colleges who were also involved in each city, and in Chandigarh we always had these closed, closed dialogue and closed meetings with the trans community in every city. So in Chandikar, we were having a discussion with the trans community, and there was a student from the local university who said, he was so moved after the discussion and after listening to their personal lived experiences, that he said that, I will personally see to it that every design that I make now in my design studio, that it has a separate, transgender toilet. Uh, because that is what came up from the discussion. Like, there were a lot of discussions, but there was one thing that, there are no toilets for us even. So, he was so moved that he said that, I will do that. And I think that's a great thing. So, if this book sort of also brings that dialogue in the education, in even in the professional fraternity, I think it'll be really great. And yeah, that's what we hope for. So we are working on it, because the exhibition also travels to Lyon in June, Lyon, France. So we are hoping to sort of publish the book before that, so that
Hopefully.
yeah, it can travel places and it can go to different people.
I mean, we also did a book, a smaller book, which was part of a workshop in Kolkata in January, which was a workshop on the North Calcutta. I mean, you might be knowing. I mean, you are from. I think you're from Odisha.
I
Yeah.
am, but
Okay.
I'm a Bengali. I'm originally from Kolkata.
Okay, so
Okay.
North Kolkata, we visited Chitpur Road, and we documented 8 streets, and I mean the students with us, of course, going to every site and trying to find stories, and the idea was to make the outcome of the workshop very easy to understand, because usually these outcome of these workshops are so overwhelming that very difficult for people to comprehend. So
Yeah.
we made a small 8 short stories on the 8 sites, which was part of the end product of the workshop. But now we are making, like, because it was short time, we have 15 days, that is the best we could come up with. Now we have taken the same project and we are making into more detailed stories, 8 of course the 8 streets, and that is also will be published by,
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
August, September. I mean, we don't have a timeline, but yeah. And I think one major role who is playing in helping us, get into this world of publishing is architect Ritu Deshmukh. She's from Navi Mumbai. She is a professor in Bharati Vidyapit, Navi Mumbai, and she has been a pivotal advocating and mentoring us in um, getting to go to these places, or wherever there is an opportunity, we either travel together, or maybe both of us go to these places, and we are trying to collaborate with her to come up with even more graphic novels. The idea is to come up with serious content, but with something which is very easy to understand.
Yeah.
So I think that has always been our goal, and I think that is where Ritu ma'am also comes into picture. And hopefully, I think by the end of the year we have maybe two or three publications. I mean, of course, we still want to write a book on architecture and the school life, but it all
It'll take a lot of time.
it'll take a lot of time. I think, I don't know.
All good things to those who wait.
Yeah.
Okay. So now, moving on to a little more hardcore, realism, reality bit of the interview, if I may say. So while, like you said, we would also love to encourage students who are leaving or graduating, if they are interested, of course, to kind of diverge into the other formats of architecture, this architectural design, or communicating architecture, whatever you would like to again term it. But there is a very big question mark which a lot of these people face, and even as like even today, even some of us who have been in this line for some time even face, is that what you are doing, or what even all of us are doing when we diverge from the particular core field, what is the commercial stability that we are looking at? What is the commercial, what should I say, picture that we are looking at? Because I have spoken to in design photographers and people, and they have all very truthfully, I will not name, said that it's not as commercially rewarding as it may seem. It is good. It's not that it's absolute, blah. But it's not very stable or very permanent or something that's coming in like one flow. So what is it with you guys? Is what I want to understand. Is how is the commercial stability or scenario that we get to see right now?
I think a good question, because see, it's more about subjectivity, first of all, where what is commercially successful. I mean, we don't know what is commercially successful. I mean, of course, star architects are the most, and they are so commercial. I mean, their major focus is on being maybe commercial. I don't know. So, I mean, we don't know what is commercially successful. It's very subjective. Some saying like downgrading myself by saying I earn this much, I'm not happy, or I'm saying no, whatever I get, I am happy with that, is again being very subjective. But again, this is again not answering the question. See, it is a balance between your mental health versus the team which you have, right? The team has to be very happy, and of course I also have to be happy, or like both of us have to be equally happy in terms of we are getting a good, I mean, decent amount of money for us. So it cannot be only focused on having a commercially successful firm. It is divided to three parts. There's a team, there is of course our mental health, which is very important, which cannot be evaluated, or which cannot be, it is intangible, right? So people might say that these are just reasons, but for us it is equally important. So when you look at these three things, what we are getting, two of us versus the team, we have a team of 7, and definitely our mental health and the mental health of the team is very important, and that is where it is never talked about. So I mean, it's it's a balance between these three, which we would call as a successful or a commercially, I would not say commercially viable, I would say a successful uh, entrepreneurship or a business. Okay, so business does not mean only money. Of course it will not work if we don't earn. That's, I'm not being too idealistic that no, these are important and those are not. Everything is a balance, where we know about our team and how difficult it is for them to work at a lower salary, to not getting space for doing work on which they like, or maybe doing something extra, to having a good pause. Same goes to us also, that we don't want to overburden ourselves so much that there is no quality, like we mentioned. I mean, we can produce quantity and we can do a lot of these things which everybody is doing, but we want to, there are things, there are studios, there are organizations which have to go slow. There is no other choice, and that is where I think the curve is very exponential. Like it's very exponential. So see, in terms of, again, I'll be very direct with the business which we have. We have our online courses, we have our collaborations on our Instagram and our Facebook page, which are basically collaborations, influencer collaborations, which we call. So it's basically collaborations to the online courses, to consultancy also, again based on the time we have, because we don't want to get into too much consultancy, because again that is too stressful for us. We don't want to like just give in to a client and all the demands which they have. So again, they have space
What
in
kind
our
of
firm, but
consultancy are we talking about here, Anuj? I'm a little
this is
confused.
of course not architectural consultancy.
No,
This
that's what
is
But
that's why.
it has definitely emerged from the interests that we have. It's not something alien that we're doing or we're not happy doing it. So for example, you know, you know, graphic design consultancy, or
Okay.
or
for
like making comics for somebody else who are
yeah,
not architects.
yeah,
That also comes into picture.
yeah.
Okay.
But we always look for something which is more close to the idea of what we have, and something which definitely would take time, and it stays longer. So like I mean, Instagram reel or TikTok is something which is like ek din ka chandi, like one day, uh, and after that you don't even remember. So I mean, although we are sometimes forced to do that, but it has to be something which is like slower and longer, because that is what I think will create a good impact. I mean, something which is short term. It's like fast food versus slow foods. Fast food is like McDonald's, right? I mean, you eat it because you don't have any other option and you want it quick and you want to leave. But slow food is something which like
Good for
like
the
my
body.
father like, yeah, good for body. It's cooked on a slow flame. It has all the right ingredients with the right proportions, and it tastes. Of course, it tastes better, and you remember it for a longer
Anyway.
time.
Hmm.
So that, I mean, of course, in this fast world, this is too ideal to say, but I think that's what we're trying to focus on. With, of course, like I said, all the financial implications which come with an organization which is having a team to also taking care of all the I mean we don't want to overburden the team, and that's, I think, nobody's talking about that these days, where like uh, everybody's focusing on the people who are on the top, but nobody's talking about the team which they have. We've been also been advocating those through our comics, through mental health, etc. I mean, we've been trying. Of course, everybody's aware and everybody wants to share and let people know, but then still it's not being discussed as much as in the architecture fraternity. I mean, definitely in general everybody's talking about, but nobody, like when it comes to architecture, the people who are on the top, they say that no, it's not affecting the architecture fraternity. And yeah, I mean, it's a mix of a lot of things. We also diversify in terms of the business which we have. It's not because, see, Instagram, which you see, is not giving us money. It's an indirect
It's
way
like
of,
an open source medium, sort
yeah.
of. So it's not really, I mean, it does give money in the sense that, there'll be collaborations, there'll be people who would want us to talk about
Yeah.
something. And of course, it has to resonate with our ideology and what we believe in. But yeah, I mean, but that's just one part of, the entire business.
I think it's more about diversifying, because see, when you start something new, you cannot follow the same steps of how, like if for example, if I talk about comics with my father, the only thing which he comes, like what comes to his mind is a book, a comic book. So you cannot live with that, right? I mean, the things which have been going on, we have to find out different ways how you can use this comics as a tool, as a method to diversify, and even in business. Of course, I mean, in terms of work, we are doing many things, but if you look at storytelling, we call ourselves actually storytellers, actually. So the skill of storytelling is something which we can use in, like, for example, we are also getting a, like, there's a short film or a short documentary, I don't know what is that, short film somebody wants to make, and we are storyboarding we are writing the screenplay for that. So the skill which is more important has to be picked. I mean, of course we started with comics, but when we spend time with comics, we find out that we are storytellers. So we can write good stories and even visualize them. It's completely up to the person, if they want a movie out of it, or a documentary out of it, or a comic book out of it, or an animation. It's the final product can be different, but where it ends for us, as in, like, where it is the most important, is the storyboarding, which is basically the writing of the story and then visually depicting what will happen. So that skill you have to identify, and of course, it has taken us 5-6 years to identify that this is what is, I think, we love doing, and I think people pay for it. That is the skill which people pay for. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's definitely, when you take a different path, it's also about diversifying in terms of business, where you can make your own rules. I mean, there is no set rule, right? There is only a pattern of doing those things, but you can break it and evolve it in a way where it becomes like it opens different avenues. So every year we have to do that, like, for example, last year, 2021, we started with the graphic, 2021. So Shreya initiated a few of these projects with City for All, then Kolkata, and so these are the projects which are the evolution, not only evolution of the studio, but evolution of even in terms of money.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, both are together.
Right.
So it's a lot of work. The point is that if you have to come in our shoes, it's a lot of. I
I'm sure
mean, everybody's doing a lot of work. I'm just saying it's intense.
it takes a lot of hard work to do something different.
sorry. I think
Yeah, no
where did we
problem.
stop?
Yeah, it's intense is what I last heard.
Yeah, I mean, to
Yeah.
conclude it, it's quite intense in terms of there is a lot of thinking going on about the stories. I mean, we are always thinking about stories. So how to execute that story, we have a team. But I think it's majorly focused on the stories which we want to write. It can be a story for a reel, for a social media comic, a narrative, a graphic novel, an animation, or like for a documentary, for etc. So there are, it's intense. So if anybody has to come in, that's, I think the problem is that everybody's creating a very glorified picture of every profession. It's a very different image. People are fed, I mean, people should be fed about failing first. Like, you have to fail. Like, the image of failure has to be given to the student from day one, or even through childhood, because that is where everything is so positive, or everybody's trying to mollycoddle students in a way that whenever there is a single failure, people say that, oh, this profession is not right for me. I mean, we have faced so many failures, so we should have left it, right? I mean, it's just that
We
you
don't
have to,
value failure that much as we
yeah.
value success, I think.
I mean, we have made a lot of comics on failure also. I mean, I know a lot of, yeah, I mean, we have done it, and there are people who get it, but there are still people who still don't want to get it, because it's good to say for us on social media, but when somebody faces it, it's very difficult. I
Actually.
mean, we get it, but I'm just saying the education system has to appreciate failure.
Absolutely.
They have to appreciate it. I mean, otherwise, I mean, it's just going to go like, people will look at this video, they will get inspired, they'll do something, they'll fail, and then they'll take a U-turn. That's it. That's how it is usually. But we want to advocate that
It is okay.
it's okay, and it's I think the
It's
best.
a
It's
part
not
of the
even okay.
process.
I think it's part of the process.
Process. You
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
fail.
Yeah. I mean, we fail every other week or something.
Yeah.
At
Sometimes
some,
every day.
yeah. I
At
mean,
something.
if let's say, there's a comic that we've really worked on for
Yeah.
like
That
a
is.
week, and it's a really good comic, but it does not reach out, maybe because of the Instagram
Instagram.
algorithm or
Yes.
something. I don't know. It just does not work. So that's also a failure.
Yeah.
I mean,
That way, so
I mean,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. We have to face every week, I think, one comic failure, because out of the two which we post, one works and one does not.
One
Simple as
doesn't
that. So, and mostly the one which we have worked on a lot fails.
Yeah.
Actually, I agree.
There's someone who's worked on the research part of it, and there's somebody who's maybe written a script after reading that research. Then there's
Storyboarding.
Kanisk, who's done storyboarding, has illustrated that comic,
And then
and
Monica has
someone has
rendered.
rendered it, and then it's there for you to see that comic
And then there's an
laugh.
editing.
Yeah,
There's a
then,
last editing
yeah,
also happens.
yeah,
So there are like 7 steps which
yeah.
eventually
Make a comic.
make a
And
comic.
then, yeah, if it's not appreciated, I mean, we are not blaming them. There are a lot of things. It's the Instagram algorithm, something.
Something, yeah.
It doesn't work. It's everybody. It's demotivating, but then you have to keep going on, because I mean.
But I think at the same time, when somebody comments something good about it, so we also feel fine.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's like a win-lose.
So I think, yeah.
Because somebody is impacted from it. I mean, we would not say, when, like, for example, last week we made a comic on placemaking.
Yeah.
I know it's still very utopia, or a new subject for many of the students. I'm pretty sure. Like, I mean, we assume a lot of things that other people might know about it, but then of course it's still something new for people. So we try to simplify it, but I mean, still, like, like, it did not reach to a lot of people. But then again, the people who read it, and of course who messaged us, etc. So there is some impact, right? I mean, if there are at least 100 students who know about placemaking now because of the comic, then of course, I mean, they will take it forward.
Like you said, it's part of the process. I mean, we can't stop doing something because it did not work.
Yeah.
Somebody had told me
one
this
time. It worked the second time.
Somebody had told me this when I was planning to be an entrepreneur, or whatever you want to call it, that the first thing on your to-do list has to be how to overcome the failures of yesterday. And that's actually an everyday process, right? I mean, every day a set of problems which you have to solve first in order to begin your day. So I guess, yes, it should be normalized to a lot more that it is not done. Okay, so finally, my last question for this segment will definitely be something for the students or people who are very much interested and intrigued to be a part of your team or connect to you, collaborate with you. Do you prefer people with a knack for, what should I say, softwares or sketching more, or do you like to take people of various crazy ideas? It doesn't necessarily need be something illustrative. I'm talking about specifically people seeking internships or wishing to work with you, because yeah, you're kind of a fad now in the architecture junior
I
specifically. So for them is what my question
I
is.
think the only requirement is that either they are an architect or they are an architecture student, or even like, I mean, we've not had
A
someone,
non-architect.
a non-architect, but somebody who is interested in architecture but is a non-architect is also fine.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't say that, I mean, it's not really necessary that you have to put them on paper or draw on paper in order to talk about something, because there is someone who will have that skill, but you can also be someone who can sort of think about those ideas or think about topics or issues that we want to talk about. So I mean, if you're somebody who's interested in everything, that's, I mean, amazing. But if not, I think that's also fine. I mean, it's just an interest in architecture and an interest in the built environment, and talking about issues of the built environment is something that we seek for, I think.
Yeah, because I think uh, the people who approach us, they feel that it's a very, because we make comics, they feel that everything is comical. It's not, because making a comic or making people laugh also is a serious job. I mean, it's fun, but it's, like I said, it's intense. It's just 2-3 images you see on social media, but it's a lot of work which is happening. And of course there are some mundane works also, because it's part of the work, every work in the world, right? It will start with research to, like we explained you the steps, right? There's 7-8 steps which we have. So there can be somebody who can plug in all these 7-8 in between these 7-8 steps. Like you said, somebody with a crazy idea background can
Yeah.
also work, but it it has to be like, you have to add value to what we do. I mean, even if it is a guy with ideas, person with ideas is fine, but then that person also has to take it forward. Like for example, there are around 100 ideas which are kept on our
Brainstorming.
cloud platform. We have some where everything is written, but nobody is able to take those 100 ideas forward. Like, what does that mean? That means that how do you take it to the next level where it is relatable to the audience? Because there are millions of topics which you want to talk about, literally millions of topics. There are a lot, but not every topic, if we just write it in the way which it is written right now, which is just kept, it will not work. So even these million ideas with good with good message will not reach out to people, so that there's no point in talking about. I mean, if it does not reach out, or if it does not communicate, for example, a star architect of course is doing good work, but if that person is not able to communicate the process and the ethos of design, etc., then what is the use of that star architect? It is just now, then for us it is only pretty images which that person is showing. So so that's where we also feel that the best of the architect might not be able to communicate, or at least that's what we feel. The best of the people in the profession might not be. It's not necessary that both of them come together. Very few are where it comes together, maybe Doshi. But I mean, unpopular opinion is from our side is even Doshi to some extent is too poetic sometimes for common. I mean, an average student like we were when we were in college, it would have been too poetic. I would have just enjoyed the way he talked, but maybe I would have not understood. So for average students like us in college, which is 90% of the college, right? It's sometimes just, oh, somebody has come, oh, big person has come to our college, oh, it's nice, it looks nice, he talks nicely, that's it.
I feel
How
that.
much only 10% of the crowd who resonates and understands with that person and goes into that complexities can take, but 90% of the crowd is acha laga, it was good. So it has to go beyond that. We have to like communicate. I know I'm diverting with the question. The question was about what does these people, the people who come in, they have to also have that skill to take it forward and communicate with the audience, common people, architecture students, architects, everybody. So whoever is the person in our team, we still, like, there are people who lack a lot of things, but still we want them to take it forward. Like if Falguni has a topic about romanticizing an architecture, she has to write and she has to go deeper and she has to take it to, like, to an extent that it can be understood. Of course, we are also there when we pitch in and we edit it. We do the editing. Mostly we do the editing part of the social media comics these days because we're traveling and we're doing these graphic novels. But whoever comes into this profession first has to have, I think, clarity of thought. That is, I think, missing in every person who comes, because we also have to educate the person who comes in the team. When I say that, it means that we spend a lot of time on the people who come because we want to let them unlearn first, because they have come with a background where they have a lot of stigmas, they have a lot of prejudices, and they are, you know initially they don't understand and they are like, why is this happening? But that unlearning takes some time, and then eventually, you have, like, we tell them to be open. You cannot come with biases. You have to be open to everything. For us, we are centrists. We are not left right. We have to be centrist. I know we are slightly aligned towards the left, but still we are in the center. We have to be open. See, what is liberal is basically looking at everything and then eventually giving a point. So it's difficult for some people who are maybe just interns, or we will have freshly graduated and join the team, but then that unlearning has to happen and they have to come with that mindset, learn, and then take it as something as new. Because I think clarity of thought only happens if you just leave your biases and your prejudices, and you start accepting around you. So I think that is one skill which we require the most when we
Beginning our next very interesting segment that we like to call Myth or Not. And of course, to tell Anuj, Shreya, and remind our audience again that in this segment, we will be reading out a few statements to you in an orderly basis. And you have to tell us that whether that statement, according to you, is a myth or whether it's not. And of course, give a supporting statement in response to say that why do you think that the particular statement is a myth or not. So are you ready, Shreya and Anuj, to play myth or not?
Yeah.
Okay, so my first statement is for Anuj. Digital media has taken over print media in architecture. Myth or not?
Um, I think it's not a myth.
You can't take her help. Her statement is different. This is yours.
No. Yeah. So the thing is that even if the print media, the number of users of print media are the same as it was before, or even if it has increased a bit, the number of digital media viewership has gone berserk. So it's not a myth. It's true.
It's
It's
true.
just that I can add to it that print media is still effective in terms of like, it will stay for you. It will stay with you for longer. The learnings of, or whatever you read or whatever you have in your print media, it has an audience. And if you want to talk about even the commercial value of it has an audience. It also has a commercial value. It's just that you have to find that audience. Same also goes for this digital media. You have to find the audience. You can never say the whole world is my audience. No, it does not work that way. Yeah.
Okay. So the next one is for Shreya. The statement is, if not for COVID, digital platforms in design would never have flourished. Myth or not?
I think that's a myth.
Okay.
because I mean, COVID would have definitely, I mean, in some way, it because we were sitting at home basically. So I mean, everything was through phone and through the internet. But I don't think that it has sort of uh, blown up so much. I think if not for COVID, it would have still, it's the most accessible thing right now. I mean, to be very honest, you can literally, I mean, if there is something that you've just got to know about, you can really sort of read about it in 1 minute. So I think it's sort of the most accessible, way of getting informed about anything. So if even if there was no COVID, it would have definitely. I think it's the same. So for me, I think it's a myth.
Okay. Our next statement is again for Anuj here. Your statement is, our current architecture teaching methodology needs change and alterations. Myth or not?
No, it's not a myth. It's true. We definitely need, even if COVID has come, like I can also put COVID into this. Everybody's saying that the way teaching is happening is evolving, changing. No, it's not. It's just that you have found tools to communicate with your students at who are staying far. That's it. That is it. And it has, there is no evolution in terms of, even if it is online, there is no evolution in terms of helping students understand scales, because that is in a screen. How can you understand scales? Is there any evolution in terms of helping students evolve the methods of online case studies? Because during the COVID they could only do online case studies, they could not go on site.
Or even presentation.
Yeah, I mean, presentation, you're literally just a screen. So there could have been to make this online teaching a new way of, or an evolution of teaching, but definitely did not. It was only, like I said, it was only functioned in a way that I can now communicate with my student who is just maybe like on the other part of the world. That's it. That is, and that's Zoom. Maybe you can just some a few months later, because of the iPad, you can scribble on the screen. That's it. So they're adding technology to it, but not making the best out of the technology.
Or not adding value.
Not adding value at all. So the current and even if I talk about offline, it has been so many years, it has still been the same. Even before pandemic, the only change was that now we have laptops and we can now quickly move into the like we can quickly move from first year, quickly move into drafting and using software, etc., so that it reduces our time. So I mean, we have an entire comic dedicated to failing architecture education system, which talks about the entire pedagogical failure of, I think it focuses more on evaluation versus assessment.
Mm-hmm.
That the students are being evaluated and not
Assessed
based on their how they perform and what is very individual to a particular student. And our course is designed to have one-on-one conversations. So why is it so generalized that this is one size fit all kind of a thing, which of course engineering has been doing it for so long. Architecture is also following the same norm. So I think, yeah, I mean, it's not, I mean, it's a hard fact that it has not evolved and it's still stagnant.
Okay. Okay, so the final statement is for Shreya. Your statement is, design journalism and design writing are the same thing. Myth or not?
Design journalism and design writing is the same thing.
Yeah. Is that a myth or
Yeah.
not?
No, that's a myth. Yeah, that's a myth. Because, yeah, I mean, it's not the same. I mean, journalism is, I mean, in its essence, it's about, telling facts without a bias, reporting facts without a bias.
True.
Which, I mean, of course, it's there. I mean, I don't know if Jane Jacobs' work sort of fits into that, but there is very few work which sort of, let's say, criticizes or, tells the actual hard, facts, true facts about what is going on in the fraternity. I mean, people who call themselves journalists, architecture journalists, I mean, to be very honest, they're supposed to praise someone, they're supposed to praise somebody's work, or they are supposed to use the word, certain words, like, I mean, I was writing for this magazine, I will not name it, but they asked me to use a word 100 times so that it could, sort of come up on Google and on SEO. So, I mean, I don't know what it is. I mean, I know that it's not journalism. So, yeah, I think that's a myth.
Okay, guys did really well. Beginning our final segment with Anuj and Shreya, and it's probably one of the most exciting segments that we have, and we love doing this with everybody. And I love to impersonate Karan Johar because in real life I can definitely not be that. So this segment is called, it's basically a rapid fire round. It's called Design in 10 Seconds. So we have about four questions for each of you separately. The only thing is that you have to answer the question like really quick in 10 seconds, each question within 10 seconds. So it's like more like just going with it. It's not thinking. You don't have to give any answers, any justifications as to why you feel that is the right one. You just have to choose an answer. That's it. That's how simple. But don't worry, this is not, none of the gossipy crap is going to be there. It's going to be very design oriented, so you don't need to fret about it. So Anuj, shall we begin with you or Shreya? Who should we begin with? Anuj. Anuj is super confident. He's going to kill it. If this was Coffee with Karan, hamper was coming.
No, I'm not actually. I'm not. No, I'm not, because I usually.
Is there a design hamper? There should have been.
No, I
design
know.
hamper for us.
Again, I wish. That's why I said I will impersonate him, because I'm not. Neither am I the king of nepotistic architects or something like that. Neither do I have such great backing. Let me just say that I can afford a hamper or something like that. But the day I do, I swear I will definitely do this. But okay, so let's.
Because I think the hamper will be going through the rapid fire.
Definitely, maybe next season.
Okay, yeah.
Next season, definitely. I will maybe collaborate with Leewardists and get a hamper of books and comics. How about that? That's a cool idea, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So Anuj, this is your rapid fire, and let's begin. Rethinking the future or architecture chat, the better platform according to you?
I think chat.
Okay.
Architecture chat.
Okay. Sketching on paper or computer illustration, what do you enjoy the most?
Sketching on paper.
Okay. Troubles of the architecture student or troubles of the architect, the theme that you love making comics about?
Student, definitely.
Okay. Instagram or Facebook, the better social media platform for architects?
Instagram, any day.
Okay, Anuj is pretty candid and quick. So Shreya, are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So
Yeah,
let's begin.
Yeah.
Reading books or reading online, the better choice?
I think books, definitely.
Okay. Architecture Digest or Arc Daily, the better online platform?
Digest.
Okay. Sketching or writing, what do you enjoy more?
I think it's a combination of both.
Okay.
It's a combination.
Your all-time favorite comic of Leeward artists?
Wow, that's a very difficult question. I think there was a comic which Anuj wrote. It was called "We Don't Need an Architect." So yeah, that's one of my favorites.
Wow, great. Wow, you both just killed this round. And yeah, as I said, no hamper, but still you should have both got it. Definitely. Really a good round. I think one of the best rapid fires I have done till now. So that was great. So before we end this, we really would like to thank both of you for joining us in this little venture that we have started, and we really want to connect with all the creative, crazy minds out there. Sorry if the crazy sounds derogatory. I don't mean it like that. I mean it in a very good way, rather. And thank you, really thank you so much for joining us. And I really hope you enjoyed it. And so, yeah, I really hope
Yes.
you enjoyed it.
Yeah, we did. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, and I think like what you are doing is also pretty good. I mean, we hardly have people who are talking about the harsh truths, and we need to collaborate more, and all of us, like similar minds coming together